Hello, this is Ken Ferry with this week's Boots in the Field Report. Harvest kicked off last week with that April corn and the early numbers coming out as guys are trying to grab some of those early harvest premiums. Moisture reports have been coming in from as dry as 26% up to 30%. Field averages so far in that 200 to 240 range. Haven't got any full soybean yield reports in yet. Last week, Janine and I took another crop tour. It started with our growers up at Helena in the Grand Ridge area. Most of the growers up there are pretty pumped on the potential corn yields. Seasonal moisture has been good enough to hold that crop together, but not high enough to kick up the tar spot. So they're expecting some pretty decent corn yields out of that area. On the bean side, their anticipation is closer to average on the beans. We're seeing a little bit of white mold in different fields up there. From there, we traveled out to south of Iowa City to look at one of our hybrid characteristic plots on the Darrell Steele farm out there. This is a plot where we plant hybrids at 22,000 and 36,000 to evaluate how they handle that stress. We're looking at ear flex, leaf structure, plant height, disease resistance, insect resistance across the board. They've had a very dry June right through to the end of August, and the cornfields out there in many parts that we drove through are pretty much dried up. In September, they've received more rain than they did in July and August put together. Now, this plot is a pretty amazing plot tour to take in. With that much water stress, there's a large difference between 22 and 36,000. So we get to evaluate stress at a higher level. The high population not only showed more drought stress, but many hybrids showed more N stress as well. The 22,000 side of the plot looked like it received another 4 inches of rain, or more, based on how green it still was. Darrell and his crew had 56 entries in this plot from like 108 to 118 day corn. The main purpose for this plot is for Darrell to find some defensive players for his lineup. Now, Darrell not only uses VRT population and nitrogen, he also utilizes multi-hybrid. And the challenge to multi-hybrid is to find a defensive hybrid that'll fit in your operation. Finding offensive hybrids is pretty easy. Finding those defensive ones, it's more of a challenge. Now, this plot was sprayed earlier with the fungicide. And along with the fungicide and the dry weather, spider mites had flared in this plot, and a few aphids. Now, we know some hybrids are more susceptible to aphids, and this plot showed that. What I found interesting was there was a difference in spider mite loads between hybrids. Some of the mites were still below the ear, and others were 2 leaves from the top, and they were causing stress on those hybrids. The tar spot was starting to build in this plot. They do plan to take pictures as it develops, and they'll be looking for hybrid response to tar spot. Plots like these go a long way in sorting out hybrid decisions for the future. From there, we traveled north to Osage in north central Iowa to spend some time with Joe and Brandon and their guys. Saw a lot of drought stress in that corn from Iowa City all the way up to Highway 20. Saw a lot of good-looking corn in that Osage area. Surprisingly, a lot of that corn was between 1/3 and half milk line, so we got some time yet to get that finished. But with such a fantastic September to get this fill, I expect some big crops to come out of that area. Tar spot was starting to explode in some of these fields as well as some of the top kill. I think double sprays will pay for them this year like it did for us last year. I believe tar spot alley has moved to northern Iowa, southern Minnesota this year. Looked at some corn that's dealing with rootworm resistance, and this was fully traded corn. Rootworm resistance continues to be a problem for them up there, and this is mainly with the northern rootworm, and it seems like the amount of pressure continues to increase. The beans look good there. I would say average to above average. Some white mold was popping up in the fields. From there we went on north up to Blooming Prairie, Minnesota to get into the fields with the Tokum family. Saw some very strong corn potential there as well. A lot of it was at half milk line. They too are dealing with tar spot. Some of the fields will be pushed to make black layer before the tar spot takes them out. Soybeans there too, I would say, looked average. Not real exciting on the lower pod set, but did finish strong at the top. That trip back from Blooming Prairie to Hayworth, we saw only one combine running in the Morton area. So again, pretty quiet from here north. Here locally in the fields we're in this week, we're seeing the effect of that dry weather had on this growing season. Here in the dry area, 30 long is a good kernel count. A lot of those tips blew off weeks ago. Some of this loss has been regained in kernel depth if the plant stayed healthy long enough after these last rains and these excellent fill days. A 36 long hybrid may have hit 230 dividing by 80. If it pulled back to 30 long but filled kernels enough now that we can divide by 70, you're going to work your way back to 220. So you're bringing back some of that potential loss that was there with kernel depth. Some of these fields in the drier area are going to be producing surprises both ways. Those that finished well will show it in kernel depth, and estimates where we divided by 70 will be closer to finish yield. In the fields that died early due to disease like crown rot and top kill, they're the ones that are going to be disappointing. Top kill coming in at or after black layer is kind of more cosmetic, and we expect to see that in most fields. But top kill coming in 10 to 15 days before black layer will really hustle this crop along at the cost of yield. This will be most evident in those D hybrids, the ones that get a chunk of their yield out of kernel depth. We don't have anything to spray top kill to stop it, but its severity is a function of timing, stress, and hybrid. In our plot program, anything we do to eliminate stress seems to help with keeping that top kill basically held back until we get to black layer or not coming in too early. And the dry weather this year, of course, is enough stress to bring that top kill in most fields. I am seeing some crown rot in fields now. Now, different than top kill, where the top just dies, the crown rot plants are the ones that are dead top to bottom. In a lot of cases, the ear is hanging down. Not as severe as last year at this point. That could change in the weeks to come. But right now, it's probably top kill that's got me concerned the most as far as its effect on yield. Again, locally, still hard to find much in the tar spot. A little bit here or there, but boy, nothing compared to last year. Nothing compared to northern Iowa, southern Minnesota, and parts of Wisconsin. Pest teams, let's watch our drone and aerial images close as this crop heads to the finish line. So you see those areas that are dying down quicker. That's your cue on where to go when you're doing your standability check. Out there pushing on those stalks and looking what's happening. Once the whole field is dead, you're not going to find them. So these are prime time to study your imagery and look at your drone images out there as you start to put your harvest roster together. To stay up to date, check out our website at croptechinc.com and subscribe to our podcast, Boots in the Field Report. Keep her safe, keep her moving.